fatal beauty. How ancient beach sand collapsed. Florida's biggest reservoir, the night paradise, fought back. Here for the first time are the most fascinating details of the largest reservoir collapse in Florida history, taking you back to the very beginning to show the geological formation that brought it down. But our story begins on the eastern shore of Lake Okeechobee, in Indiantown, Florida, a place most people have never heard of, even in Florida. October 30th, 1979, the night before Halloween, Martin County. While the Bee Gees rocked the world with Tragedy, part of their record-breaking year with 7 songs in the top 40, and America prepared for trick-or-treaters, something far more terrifying was about to unfold in the middle of the night. Just 18 months before, Florida Power and Light had constructed a massive cooling reservoir on existing sloping terrain. The land rose naturally from 20 feet above sea level in the southwest to 30 feet in the northeast, and engineers built an earthen dam to elevation 50 feet, 30 feet higher than the low ground. This 1953 USGS map reveals the story in exquisite detail. The landforms, wetlands, gentle slopes, and precise elevations, the Florida East Coast Railway line running along the western edge, and something else that would prove crucial. Sand pits dug long before any reservoir was ever imagined. The earthen embankment rose with an outboard slope of 3-to-1 horizontal to vertical, a 16-foot wide access road at the top, and an inboard slope of 2 horizontal to 1 vertical. At 6,600 acres, this represented 19 miles of earthen dikes, holding back massive volumes of cooling water for Florida Power Light's huge power plant. The catastrophic night. Then came the night of October 30th, 1979. In the middle of the night on Halloween Eve, at exactly 11:30 p.m. without warning, brilliant blazing white beach sand exploded out of the ground like a volcanic eruption. 600 feet of earthen dam vanished in moments, unleashing 100,000 cubic feet of water per second, a flow rate never before seen in Florida, more powerful than Niagara Falls. By 1 a.m., the force was so immense that it overturned a Florida East Coast Railway freight train in complete darkness. The train crew initially reported it as merely a flash flood, not knowing they were witnessing the largest reservoir failure in Florida history. The visual shock of this failure captured national attention and left engineers bewildered. This was no ordinary flood. This was a beauty of nature somehow entwined with catastrophic failure. Crystal clear water carrying pristine white sand that witnesses said looked like milk, like clouds, like paradise liquefied. The earth didn't collapse. It dissolved, like sugar in water. Beautiful and terrible. The peak flow of 100,000 cubic feet per second occurred at 3:30 a.m. By 3:00 p.m. the next day, 66,000 acre-feet of water had drained away. 14,100 acres lay flooded with what appeared to be liquid paradise. The visual impact was unprecedented. Aerial photographs showed a landscape transformed overnight into something that looked more like an otherworldly white desert than Florida farmland. What baffled engineers most was not the scale of destruction, but its cause. In every photograph, in every witness account, in every piece of evidence, white sand. White sand everywhere. Perfect, mesmerizing white sand that had poured out from somewhere deep beneath the reservoir. Not the brown clay or dark soil you would expect, but brilliant white sand so pure it seemed to glow. The cover-up and forgotten lessons, the 1983 USGS map, surveyed after the failure, provides invaluable evidence that was hidden beneath the water during the original disaster. This post-failure survey revealed the locations of all the borrow pits that had been excavated within the reservoir footprint, including one critical pit just outside the embankment toe that proved to be the key player in this geological drama. What followed was a forensic investigation by the nation's best engineering experts and a lawsuit that extended for years after the failure. But the lawyers made sure to keep everything fuzzy. No definitive conclusions, no clear blame, no understanding of the true cause. The mystery remained unsolved. Perhaps more tragically, the superior knowledge gained from this catastrophic experience was never passed on to the next generation of engineers. Today, engineers are building reservoirs and water storage cells in the exact same area with zero knowledge of what triggered the 1979 collapse. This institutional amnesia has resulted in much more recent litigation over the identical geological issue, though the connection remains unrecognized. The entire failure has been forgotten and filed away. 46 years of silence. 46 years of lost knowledge. 46 years of engineers unknowingly dancing with the same geological time bomb. Journey back in time. But now, 46 years later, we have a chance to revisit this disaster with technologies that were not imaginable in 1979. Where do we start? We must go back much further than anyone imagined. Our story begins 2.5 million years ago, when scientists first detected permanent ice formation on Earth's polar regions. This marked the beginning of the modern ice age, not a single frozen period, but a complex rhythm of glacial and interglacial cycles. Every 50 to 100,000 years, like clockwork, massive ice sheets would grow and lower sea levels by hundreds of feet, then melt back down, causing seas to rise again. Since that first ice formation, Earth has experienced dozens of these major cycles. We must examine one particular cycle, the one scientists call marine isotope 5e or MIS 5e, and its profound impact on Florida. Science has now concluded that we had a high sea level stand in Florida at elevation 28 feet above today's level, 125,000 years ago. That high stand lasted for several thousand years, carving a shoreline at that precise elevation. Here's what makes this discovery so startling. The FPL reservoir was constructed on land between 20 and 30 feet elevation. The reservoir sat directly on the ancient plus 28-foot shoreline, the birth of Crystal Sand Bay. At this time, 125,000 years ago, the human structure was just forming to create the modern human. We really did not exist as a species yet. But those shells which formed the coquina? That same species is still abundant in Florida today. When you examine the plus 28-foot shoreline, one thing slaps you in the face. The huge back barrier lagoon at this location, sandwiched between Green Ridge, which was a barrier island then, and the higher Orlando Ridge. It's huge, and it's shallow, and we have seen nothing like this in our coastline's history. Today we call it Alapata Flats, a native word meaning alligator flats, and it is one of the most confusing landscapes in Florida. When sea level pushed up to plus 28 feet, there was a massive amount of white silica sand, as brilliant white as you can get. It blinds you in the sun. These almost pure quartzite sands came from the Appalachians long ago and sat offshore until the sea level rise pushed them up to the new shoreline. At elevation plus 28 feet, the alligator flats became what we now call Crystal Sand Bay, a shallow, protected lagoon with significant shelter from Green Ridge offshore, its bottom lined with this brilliant white sand. Picture this ancient paradise, 80,000 acres of crystal clear warm water, protected behind Green Ridge Barrier Island, fed by pristine springs. The bottom lined with that brilliant white quartzite sand that looks like premium aquarium sand, so perfect it seems artificial. No pollution, no development, no human impact. Just nature's perfect crystal lagoon that lasted for 15,000 years. As sea level retreated, that white sterile sand, which barely supports vegetation, was rafted in and has remained there for over 100,000 years. Eventually, it was covered by only 3 to 4 feet of modern soil, sometimes even less. This white sand layer is about 2 to 3 feet thick, horizontally pervasive and highly permeable. We call it the sand lens. Compared to its top and bottom layers, it is a hidden superhighway for seepage. The mechanics of destruction. The phenomenon we call today backward erosion piping was known but not yet formally termed in 1979. When this sand lens gets exposed by a cut, such as a ditch or borrow pit, water follows the law of gravity and exploits points of weakness. The exploited localized point starts to seep faster, and then particles start dislodging. When there's water pressure acting on that sand layer, remember the water elevation in the railway borrow pit at the time of failure was plus 17.5 feet, compared to plus 36.74 feet in the reservoir just 400 feet away. That's nearly a 20-foot head pressure differential. Particles start peeling off, and the erosion eats backwards like a mole tunneling through the earth. As the soil erodes in that subterranean channel, water does something truly dangerous. It synergizes itself. The erosion accelerates exponentially because flow rate is not linear to opening size. Here's the terrifying mathematics that contractors learn too late. Within an hour, it can go from 1 gallon per minute to 1,000 gallons per minute, and then to 10,000 gallons per minute in the next 30 minutes. At that point, backward erosion piping transforms into rapid undermining which cannot be controlled. The technical smoking gun. Here are the construction details that condemn the engineering decision. Embankment construction began in April 1974 and was completed in July 1977. Reservoir filling began February 6, 1978, reaching maximum design elevation of 37 feet by April 3, 1978. The water level was maintained between 36 and 37.24 feet until the day of failure, when the pool stage stood at 36.74 feet, well within design parameters. But here's the smoking gun. The engineers designed an essentially homogeneous embankment, meaning no impermeable core, no cut-off wall, just sand piled on sand, and they knew the foundation was pervious material. The official report states, since the embankment was founded on pervious material, it was anticipated that considerable seepage would occur. They built anyway. Makeup pumping averaged 48 cubic feet per second, and then up to over 100 cubic feet per second in the period preceding the collapse. They were constantly fighting seepage through that ancient crystal sand bay layer, the James L. Sherrod irony. The involvement of Dr. James L. Sherrod in this catastrophic failure represents one of the most stunning paradoxes in engineering history. Sherrod was literally the world's foremost authority on embankment dam failures, having worked on over 220 dam projects worldwide and authored the definitive textbook, Earth and Earth-Rock Dams. Just 3 years before the FPL failure, Sherrod investigated the Teton Dam collapse and criticized it for designs that would have been considered unacceptable by independent specialists. Yet the FPL reservoir exhibited the exact failure mechanisms he had spent his career documenting. By settling on contractual liability limitations and leaving no technical documentation of the sand lens failure mechanism, the engineers violated the fundamental duty of the profession to learn from failures and protect future lives. Modern technology reveals the truth. Using USGS National Viewer 3D technology that didn't exist in 1979, I found the exact spot where it blew out. See that little mountain they filled up to plus 35 feet? That's the blowout location, right where the catastrophic failure occurred. Their solution? They built a mountain on top of it like a super sandbag. Rather than addressing the underlying geological problem, they simply buried it under thousands of tons of fill material. But here's what should alarm every engineer. See that other hump right next to the main repair mountain? It's not a secondary failure location. It's a spare pile of emergency dirt, kept ready in case they need to raise that mountain higher. They maintain a stockpile of emergency repair material because they know this ancient beach sand could strike again at any moment. 46 years later, they're still playing defense against a 125,000-year-old beach. The ongoing threat. These major facilities are typically designed by large national engineering firms with limited Florida-specific geological experience. What they don't realize is that Florida is not continental United States. We only geologically connected about 25 million years ago. We're essentially a 25-million-year-old piece of Caribbean seafloor that drifted north and collided with Georgia. Engineers from continental U.S. states naturally apply continental geological principles to Florida projects. But our limestone karst, our marine terraces, our ancient beach deposits, none of this exists in standard textbooks. The MIS 5E Marine Terrace at 28 feet elevation? Local Florida engineers know about it from reading topographic maps daily. But it's not taught in engineering schools in other states because it doesn't exist there. No one ever revisited the technical lessons. The failure report was filed away, never to become a teaching case in engineering schools. The brilliant white sand evidence was covered with fill dirt and forgotten. Today, engineers are building new reservoirs and water storage cells in the exact same area, with zero knowledge of what triggered the 1979 collapse. The same geological time bomb threatens every major water project being built in Martin County today. Final warning: the ancient lagoon that we now call Crystal Sand Bay was nature's perfect engineering masterpiece, more spectacular than any modern resort could ever create. When sea level retreated, that perfect beach was buried under just 3 feet of soil, waiting. Not with malice, just being what it had always been. In Florida, when something looks this beautiful, this perfect, this pristine, when white sand blinds you in the sun and looks like premium aquarium substrate, remember this story. Because here in the Sunshine State, paradise has a very long memory, unlimited patience, and all the time in the world to plan its comeback. When 125,000-year-old Crystal Sand Bay finally decided to reclaim its territory, all the engineering in the world couldn't stop nature's most beautiful revenge. Fatal beauty isn't just a phrase, it's a geological reality. In Florida, when looks can kill, they really can kill. Drop Dead Gorgeous has never been more literal. The ancient Crystal Sand Bay taught us that sometimes the most dangerous thing you'll never see coming is paradise itself, patiently waiting beneath your feet. Remember, never trust a beach that's been buried for 125,000 years. It's still a beach. It still remembers how to move water, and it's been planning this comeback since before humans walked the earth. When paradise looks this good, it's a trap.